This is Richard Wolff from Democracy at Work, responding to another Ask Prof Wolff question from our Patreon community. I want to begin, as I often do, thanking the Patreon community for all their supports over the years and in the variety of ways that they do, which include formulating and sending us these questions. This one comes from someone who wants to remain simply Jonathan. So thank you, Jonathan, for your question, and it could not be more appropriate. It has to do with a political party. It has to do with the idea of people on the left who take politics seriously, that basically we confront here in the United States a system that has two political parties devoted to its health, its maintenance, and its growth. One is the Republican Party that wants to do that in its way, and the other is the Democratic Party that wants to do it in a different way. Generally, one might say the Republicans represent employers. They tend to be harsh. They tend to be focused on making money. They tend to be supportive of whatever cultural and political traditions put the employers and the wealthier workers they hire in the driver's seat in pretty much everything else. The Democratic Party, especially because of the Great Depression of the 1930s, is the other way of going about it. They basically love and support capitalism. President Biden says so. Nancy Pelosi has said so. President Clinton demonstrated his commitment. So did Obama, etc. But they don't want to do it quite as much in the harsh pro-employer way. They want to share at least some of capitalism's wealth with the mass of people, recognizing the inequalities and doing something at least palliative about it. Do they fundamentally confront the system? No. Are they critics of the system? Barely. Critics of some of its excesses, but always committed, in the words of one of them, to saving capitalism, even if it means saving it from itself. So people who are critical of this have always said a decent society, a democratic society, has to have an opposition. It has to have a party that represents those of us who think that we can do better than this current capitalist system. Those of us who are beyond the debate of how best to reproduce it, but rather raise the question, how can we do better? What would it mean to do better? How can we get to a condition where we do better? And so on. There are therefore always people, and there always have been in the United States, who've tried to develop a third party, a fourth party. Let me put as a parenthesis, because Jonathan mentions it in his question, that most of the countries of Europe, for example, whose stability these days is by and large greater than ours, whose divisions internally are by and large less than ours, given how violently conflictual our system has become. In those countries less divided, they have more political parties than two. Turns out that having more than two political parties is not an invitation or a sign of social division. In fact, nowadays, it literally suggests the opposite, that the countries are more stable the more they give their people real choices when it comes to politics. America is funny that way. It celebrates freedom of choice, but not in politics. There, two is quite enough, thank you very much, and we won't have any more. So what's the status now? There are some efforts. There always are, and there always were, and there are some now. A People's Party, a new party. They've had many different names. But at this point, they remain small. They remain early. They remain embryonic more than real. There is one particular development I would feel constrained to recognize here because I believe it deserves it. Bernie Sanders, AOC, and the socialist wing, for lack of a better term, within the Democratic Party that has emerged. This is at least a group of people willing to raise the question of capitalism simply by having the label socialism and not running away from it as politicians in this country for so long did. So yeah, they're opening it up. And indeed, just the other day, there was an interview in the British newspaper, The Guardian, interesting that it was in Britain, by Bernie Sanders, in which he says bluntly, the Democratic Party has turned its back on the working class. If he means it to be what it could be, the opening salvo, if you like, of the beginning of a movement of these people like him and AOC to break away from a Democratic Party on the fundamental question, is it our job to reproduce and sustain capitalism, or is it our job to advocate for doing better, for doing a system that will be more democratic, more egalitarian, and support the values that I think an awful lot of Americans would support and do so politically if they had the political party to do so. I also think a political party is absolutely necessary to mobilize and organize people, especially over the longer run, longer than a few months. You can have a movement of all kinds, and we have them, anti-racist, anti-sexist, pro-ecology, and so on. But we need to get all of this together and organized, to not be afraid of being an organized political opposition. A healthy society needs it. Our society doesn't have it, and you can draw the logical conclusion. If messages like this strike you, as they do us, as something important to contribute into the political conversations of our time, please help us do it. By far the most important way you can partner with us is to share this video and the others that we regularly produce with as many people as you can. Spread the word, extend our reach, build the movement for the kind of changes I think you know we so badly need. And if, of course, you can support us in other ways, please do so. We need funding, we need people's volunteer, we need all kinds of things to grow as movements like ours do. We are deeply grateful for your support. It has enabled us to grow far beyond our dreams, but we want to do more of that. Thank you.